Why are you walking down Main Street with no damn clothes on?
Sir, you say that like it's a bad thing. The Lord made these clothes I wear.
All right, enough of this. Turn around, put your hands behind your back. Stop resisting, or you catch another charge.
Tag, officer, you're it. Tag, Marco Polo.
Oh, you're going to the ground. Do you want to get tased?
Oh, I bet I blow a 666 again, officer.
Nope, not this time. You got a 667. That's a 666 with my extra long thumb checking your oil.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good to see you here for another Murder Metal Mayhem live event here. Got the usual suspects in the chat already. Let me see. We got misleading evidence. Definitely like that handle. That's cool. Donna Lembo, of course, the mod to make sure you guys keep in line. One of the mods keep everybody in line, but Donna's been with me since the very, very beginning and has been just a huge supporter. So thank you so much, Donna. Voice of Astrology been in the chat nonstop here in the last month or so, couple months maybe. Appreciate you very much. Hitman 23, I've seen you around. And Purple Smurf, I think that's a new one, but that's okay. That's okay. Love to see some new faces in here and get some people filing in as we start this live up. I used that intro. I was kind of watching that the other day and just started laughing at the idiocy between me and my friend Mike on that one. I'm supposed to do one with AR. I meant to do it today and I just didn't have time, but me and AR are going to do one, which will be a lot of fun. I'll just give you the basic setup is that I'm going to be going to Vegas and AR is going to meet me like at the airport or something. And we're going to, Marco, and we're going to just paint the town red, going crazy. And I'm going to be just out of my mind drunk and he's going to be chasing me around, which is funny because I don't drink. He doesn't drink either. But it'll be funny to do that. And so looking forward to that very much with AR Hayes. And speaking of Mr. AR Hayes, he's going to be here with me on Thursday. And I got a lineup for you on Thursday. Man, we got me, AR Hayes, and Lee from a Devil's I always want to say Devil's Rejects, a Devil's Advocates, who's just an amazing channel. And all three of us just going to tear up some topic. We haven't even decided what yet. Maybe you can give us some ideas, whether we do some Idaho 4 or another case entirely. We could go any way around. AR's been keeping up with what's going on in the news. So see, my mom is there. Awesome to see my mom in there. Just talked to her today on the phone, but she asked me what the live was about, and I told her, and she said, "Well, I'll see you there." And I thought, wow, my mom's getting pretty hardcore if she heard what Harvey Glatman's story was and still wants to come in and just say hello to everybody. But Pippo Mama, no problem. You're not late. I'm just jaw jacking while we wait till everybody filters in and gets seated, so to speak. Get yourself, Isle of Shoals, Devil's Rejects was a crazy movie. That's why I always think of that when I see that the first word Devils. That's what I think of. But yeah, Lee's channel is great. I know a lot of Ma, you get your serial killer education here. You know what to stay away from. That's for sure. Unfortunately, Mom, this is a Bronx boy we're talking about tonight. So it's too bad I got to bring one of them to the center stage here. But tonight, this is a Bronx born serial killer. So, but yeah, so the rules of my lives are very simple. As long as you act civil to each other, we can have some varying, disagreements. Now, with this particular show or live, I'm just talking about the serial killer Harvey Glatman. Okay, I'm not talking about Idaho 4. I'm not talking about any of that stuff unless it pertains to something that I'm talking about. Because I think bringing in other true crime cases while you're talking about a different one can sometimes bring in some interesting perspectives on things, and that's why I like to cite other cases, and I do that quite a bit in tonight's episode that we're going to do with Harvey Glatman. So, but you guys had wanted to do the lesser known serial killers, and this has definitely got to be top of the tops with virtually unknown but unbelievably you know he was very, very, he was looked up to by a lot of these crazy bastards. I mean, you got Ted Bundy, BTK, Gacy, Boston Strangler. I mean, any of them that tied women up or strangulated women was inspired by Glatman. All of them. Glatman was around in the early 50s. So, you had the term serial killer wasn't even invented yet. But yet the guys who invented the word and started that behavioral unit at the FBI will all cite Glatman as the ultimate like benchmark in his era of what a serial killer was, and then proceeded into the golden age of the serial killer. If you talk to Dr. Peter Vronsky, which would be the 70s and 80s and maybe early 90s, and then that's pretty much the end of it. But yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But want to make it clear, so in case anybody's like, well, I don't care about Harvey Glatman, that's cool. That's cool, but I think you'll find that this is a very interesting person to talk about, and it explains some things about maybe some other cases that you've been interested from. I'm not sure what part of the Bronx, Mom. I just know he was born in the Bronx, so but he grew up there too. He wasn't just like born like where I was. He was a resident, but I don't know what neighborhood. I bet the book Rope, I've got it. I just got to find it. Would probably tell me it. I'll try to find that out. That would be interesting to know if he was on Fish Avenue where we were. But yeah, Pippo Mama's right. He was awful. I mean, he's an awful piece of garbage. So in no way do I want anybody to construe what I'm doing here with this series. I'm pointing out the garbage of this world. We find these things interesting. That doesn't mean that we're like cheerleading these fools. I just want to be super clear about that, okay? Because that is not in any way what I'm trying to do here with that. So Pitbull Mama read up on him, so that's cool. She's prepared. This is like school, right? Like I feel like I'm the professor and you guys are here to learn about some true crime. And at the end of this thing, I've actually been debating whether to do some type of certificate that you could print out for yourself. That might be kind of cool. So, man, maybe let's do that. Let's do a certificate for the people that finish the course. Maybe I'll do a little exam at the end. That would be kind of fun for me, not for you. But I used to write exams for my previous job, so I could do it and not fail anybody. Professor Pete, there you go, Ma. There you go. But yeah, I used to write exams, and I had to pass, state exams, so they had to pass certain criteria, and they had to get 70% or better. And there were people I taught that did not have a high school education. but were smart guys and knew their maintenance related field very well. So I had to get them through a test, and then I'm also dealing with PhDs and CIHs and all sorts of abbreviations of different degreed people that had to go through my tests as well. So yeah, and it's school superintendents. I trained a lot of school superintendents, which was funny because they're all doctors and I'm just a mister because I just went through high school and a little bit of college and I didn't care for it. Exactly, Pippo Mama. We can all get a PhD. Exactly. Exactly. That's the plan. All right, let me see. Anything else in my notes here? Oh yeah. I got a comment the other day. I thought this was funny because every creator on the face of the earth says, please like, subscribe. I mean, we all do it because if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And that's how a lot of us get paid, is by how many people like the video. And the more video likes, it gets more views and la, la, la. So that's a common, that's an obvious thing for most creators are going to mention it. So you guys will do that. And I had somebody say, don't you think it's presumptuous for you to ask for a like in the beginning before we've watched your video? And I'm like, well, I guess if you want to be, you know, technical about it, I guess. But I'm just like, if you're watching my channel, more than likely you're a return person, or you're getting the full. I mean, I'm me from the beginning to the end of my videos, so I think people know pretty quick what they're getting when they're hearing me talk about something. So if they want to believe it or be a part of it, whatever. But people just, like I said, want to just be annoying, just to be annoying. But I thought that was funny that I was presumptuous to ask for a like. So if you feel you need to hold on to the end to like it, then that's fine. That's fine. And subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and leave a comment because it helps the replay get out there to more people. So those of you on replay, you can leave a comment, and those of you here with us can be in the chat. So all right. Well, let's go. The way this works is I'm gonna go into this story about Harvey Glatman. I'm gonna be paying very little attention to the chat so that it doesn't distract from the flow of what I'm going to talk about. And then when I'm done talking about it, um, then I'll open it up to everybody else. Now, last time it went, I'm trying to get these things under an hour. The last time we were right at just under an hour, and I had about 10 minutes or so for comments at the end. So don't feel frustrated if you're trying to, get my attention, because I'm not going to be looking at that, because if I do, it'll distract me, and then it takes me longer to get through it. So I'm going to go through what I'm going to cover and then open it wide open. So keep your questions ready. And when I'm done, we'll get into a discussion about it. Okay. So here we go. So Harvey Glatman, born December 10th, 1927 in the Bronx, New York. And so I was born there 40 years later after old Harvey. He was born into a two-parent family as an only child, and he was Jewish, which is interesting because the feature last week, Joel Rifkin, also was Jewish, and I don't believe there's a whole lot of Jewish serial killers out there. So kind of interesting that there was a few. I just watched something on the Son of Sam, and of course he was one, but then he converted to Christianity later. But that's a whole different story. But interesting to start this series off with two Jewish serial killers, not by design. That's just how it worked out. Now, Gladman was a smart kid with an IQ of 130, but he showed signs at an early age of some anti-social behavior. If you want to, man, this kid was a little bit wacky. His mother caught him, and I got to be careful of how I word this on here, so you're going to have to do some visuals And Mom, sorry. Uh, his mother caught him tying a piece of string to his privates and pulling on it, like tied it to like a drawer. It was pulling on it to achieve a thrill. Okay. This is a little kid. And oddly, this would begin his fascination with rope, which is very interesting. And as a matter of fact, I've got the book, but I cannot locate it right now. I've got so much stuff going on. There's a book about him called Rope. And if you're interested in Glatman, that's the book to get. I'll give you the author at the end of this, but that's the book to get is Rope because he goes all about it. He goes deep into why he did what he did and very, very interesting. Now, at age 12, he was using rope in the shower by running it through the drain and around his neck, and then doing this as like an auto erotic asphyxiation, if you get my drift. Okay. So, definitely very strange. His mom caught him doing this, so that had to be special. If anybody's a Trailer Park Boy fan, that would remind me of J Rock getting walked in on by his mom, which was just brutal. One of my favorite episodes of that show, by the way. But but what they took him to the doctor, but like a regular doctor, and of course, they want him to give him advice on what they should do about this. He doesn't know anything, especially in the 40s. So he just told him he was going to grow out of it. So the family ends up moving to Denver to kind of escape the crime-ridden Bronx, but that did not help. He growing into adolescence, he's involved in breaking into apartments. He's stealing, which is very common with serial killers. He would go into the bedrooms and get mementos from the victims, mostly women, and he would go for things like undergarments and nylon stockings and lingerie and stuff like that. Now, one of his break ins, he would get a pistol, and that was like his prized possession, apparently. And other than rope, that was his thing. So he loved ropes and guns, and that's not good. His guilty pleasure then turned to stalking women and then assaulting them in their own homes. Awful. He eventually moves back to New York, and then it doesn't take long for him to get arrested. And in 1945, Glatman gets 5 to 10 years in Elmira Reformatory, and he was a minor, so he gets to go there. But then 2 years later, he gets transferred to the infamous Sing Sing prison in New York, and we did a podcast on Sing Sing prison for Murder Metal Mayhem, and that's a wicked place. And that's actually, if you're not familiar, it's near Ossining, and that's where it's an Indian or a Native American, excuse me, saying or word that means I don't know if it means river or what it is, but that's where it gets its name from, up the river, because it's on the Hudson River and it's north of New York City. So if you were going up the river, that meant you were going to Sing Sing. So that's where that all comes from. So you don't know where your education from Murder Metal Mayhem ends, because if you ever get on a game show and that question comes up, where does up the river come from? You're just going to nail it, and you're going to be able to thank me for it. All right. You can cut me in on the winnings too. That would be nice. Now, while he was in prison, Glatman was diagnosed with psychopathic personality, schizophrenic type with sexually perverted impulses. Sounds like the name of a hardcore band lineup. Um, just the guy who you'd want living in your neighborhood. I mean, my God. So, of course, the parole board gives him an early ticket out of Sing Sing, perfect candidate, in 1948 due to his hard work and ability to stay out of trouble while he was incarcerated. But would be his ability to act like he needed to act in order to get what he wanted. And he learned that in prison very well. So now he's becoming more dangerous. He's smart, with a somewhat normal look. As he got more out of it, he became more disheveled. Actually, some victims noted that he had a body odor to him. So he was going in a downward spiral. But at this point, he was looking very average. And now we would see his mind growing as he gets older. And then in prison, he's surrounded by others just like him or worse. And, where he further learns this craft to like a master's degree because he's a smart dude. And now he's set upon the biggest city on the planet, New York, right? Now, he was odd, or he was old enough so he could move wherever he wanted. So then he ends up in Los Angeles in 1957, another big city full of trouble for old Harvey waiting for him. But now he's got this new idea. He's got his in, and this would be a thing that Bundy would emulate to a degree. He gets himself a camera and poses as a photographer because he figured he's shy, he's backward with girls. He felt girls never wanted anything to do with him. And he was, he had kind of big ears and, kind of funny looking. And so, speaking of that, I meant to show this to you before. Let me show you in case you didn't look and see what this guy looked like. That's what he looked like. Okay. So, kind of like, just this dork next door kind of thing going on. But once he would get older, then he would, go back to, doing his thing. He would get worse and worse as things went on. Let's see here. So he's got this camera. He's got this, but for a guy, with the psychopathic tendencies and weird sexual hangups, Glatman's planning to use the camera for some devious reasons. And he's got that gift of gab, probably partially from prison. He gets some printed business cards to appear like he's a professional. And he gets some camera gear that's not too bad. So he looks legit. And he's able to convince women to get pictures taken of them in various forms of undress. Now, Glatman would hang out at various Los Angeles modeling agencies, scouting out potential victims. And this was a time when, in the US, those pulp magazines were very popular, especially the detective magazines that featured sexy women tied up in various poses. I know BTK was huge into that with the women on the train tracks and all that stuff. Bundy, of course, all about that. And he would pose as a photographer with connections that he could break them into the modeling world. So they took it hook, line, and sinker, unfortunately. And at that time, apparently, this wasn't that uncommon. It's kind of funny, or not funny. Men who wanted nude photos of their own would frequently pay models to do an exclusive photo shoot for their own perversion. So, I guess that element has always been out there, right? There's always ways to get that sort of thing. Inside of a professional studio, though, Glatman, or instead of a professional studio, Glatman would take women back to his apartment where he would tie them up for their photo shoot and tell them his intentions was assaulting and then strangling them. So imagine how terrified you would be. And there's some pictures, if you Google it, of these pictures, and you could see the terrified look of these women's eyes. There's one out in the desert that's crying and he's got her tied up. It's messed up. But that's how he got off on this whole thing. And he usually would assault them, then strangle them. He usually did this with some sort of ligature. At the time, the go-to was the nylon stockings, very similar to the Boston Strangler. And then as nylon stockings became less in fashion with younger women, their assaulters would use alternative ligatures like strings and cords, and some even their bare hands. Now, Glatman would take the bodies to the desert and dispose of them there, which, of course, he's in LA, so he's close. His first two known victims were models Judith Dull and Ruth Mercado. It was the third victim he met in a Lonely Hearts Club ad in a newspaper. That was Shirley Ann Bridgeford. But that victim would earn him another nickname, which was the Lonely Hearts Club Killer. So you'll see those two, Glamour Girl Slayer and Lonely Hearts Club Killer, used for Harvey. But I go with Glamour Girl Slayer. I like it better. And Lonely Hearts Club were popular back then in newspapers for singles. People looking for a date would go on there, kind of the precursor to Match.com and that sort of thing. Um, and other attackers that went by that name, and I knew because we had done it as a podcast on Murder Metal Mayhem, was Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck, who went by the Lonely Hearts Club Killers because of plural. They worked together, like the famous Carla Homolka case up there in Canada, the Ken and Barbie killers, very similar to that with these two, or the English duo, the Moors murderers. That would be another similar type relationship there. Um, the Folly à Deux, as Dr. Harold Schechter would tell me in a couple interviews I did with him. But that's who I look at as the Lonely Hearts Club Killers, is those two, and they were executed. Ironically, the Lonely Hearts Club Killers were executed one after the other on the same electric chair at Sing Sing. So one back to back, and I think the guy went first, if I'm not mistaken. But that's messed up. Back to back on the same chair. His last victim managed to escape on the highway in front of an oncoming police car, and Glatman's arrested without any drama, but he cried. It's too bad the police body cam videos weren't all around back then, because my wife and I love watching those, but this would have been a good one. This fool crying on the side of the road. Eventually, though, he confesses to the three crimes. He's sentenced to die in the gas chamber in San Quentin, which is very close. So 1959. So it's like a year and 6 months later, boom, they took care of him. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to die. So, and in a sense, he got what he wanted. But then again, he was off the planet. So that's the story with Harvey Glatman. I mean, pretty wild. That he is considered kind of the model of what the serial killer would be, years and years later, into the 70s, I think was when they started using the term. So he was like 20 years before that. So he was definitely an old school, person that comes up in conversation. And now that you've been educated, you can school them on who Harvey Glatman was. But I mentioned the book Rope. It's excellent. I have it. Michael Newton is the author. There was one of the docs I watched today on YouTube where he's on there, so that was kind of cool. And then the other, my go-to always, Serial Killers: The Method and Madness of Monsters by Peter Vronsky. Excellent book, excellent resource. There's not a ton of stuff on Glatman in here, but he's referenced, I think, four different times. So again, he keeps showing up when certain things come up about, like I said, tying up women, giving women like with Bundy, with can you help me with my books? Giving them a line to kind of break that barrier and get them vulnerable, that sort of thing. Very, very similar and fascinating, as I've said before, to see this parallels in a lot of these cases. So what do you guys think about old Harvey Glatman? Oh, here's my friend Juan. Juan, you're a friggin' hero, dude. If anybody on here knows that Juan was one of the guys that came over here to put my ramp in, to get me into my studio. I've known this man for 20 something years, just a great dude. and he showed it on Sunday. They came out here and they made my ramp. So give Juan some love. But Juan is bringing up rope, and I saw this too, Juan, about being based on Leopold and Loeb, and that's another Folie à Deux case with two, and those guys were thrill killers. So they were very unique because they were both rich kids that had nothing to do. Just what the hell? Why don't we just see what it feels like? I mean, just so messed up. And then, of course, they were a big, famous trial with Leopold and Loeb because at the time this was the biggest case involving, like celebrities of the time because their parents were very wealthy up in Chicago, and that would be a good case to do on here because it's interesting. And the thrill killers, we've seen it before. The very first school shooter was a thrill killer. What was her name? Brenda Ann Spencer. She was the first school shooter. Lived across the street from the school, and just started open firing from her front door and shooting at the schools. Messed up. But that's another good one. I mean, there are so many. It's endless. Which ones we can do. And speaking of that, the one I want to do next week, I'm going to bring on my buddy Shane. I'm calling him Canadian Shane because that's where he's from Winnipeg. And he is a frequent co-host of Murder Metal Mayhem, the podcast, especially when we do a Canadian case. So Shane is going to come on with me. So he's going to be the first guest I do one of these with. There'll be others, maybe Juan. If Juan wants to do that, of course, we'd welcome Juan on this. I know which one Juan wants to do. We talked about doing it before, Juan, and I'm down if you are. Taylor Shabusiness. That would be a good one. Juan wanted to do that case, so that would be wild. We'd have to really watch how we say things, but that would be a good one to do for sure. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff, and so we're going to do with Shane. I thought we'll do a Canadian case, and we're going to go with Alan Legere. Alan Legere, Legere, Alan with two L's and an A at the end, A-N. And he was wicked, assaulting older women, like senior citizens, and like burning their houses down, and wild, and just going on a crime rampage. They couldn't stop him, but they called him the monster of the Miramichi because the Miramichi River ran through the town where he was creating just straight chaos. Okay, I just caught this out of the corner of my eye. So my buddy Juan says he's down. So, all right, Juan. Well, how about after I do Legere with Shane, you and I do Taylor Shabusiness? How about that? Check your calendar, brother, and let me know if that Tuesday works. If it doesn't, would you just pick the one you want to do? So there we go. That's how the scheduling happens here, just on the fly. But any comments on? So yeah, maybe I skipped that paragraph. I'm sorry if I did. You're right, Voice of Astrology. I must have missed that in my note. Yes, the last victim that he had was in his car, and she got out of the car on the highway, and there were some oncoming lights, and it was ironically a cop car. So they stopped and helped her, and he was just crying, in the car, and then they wound up taking him without any drama. So I must have missed that few sentences. I apologize because that's a good part of the story because he didn't get the last one. He was trying for it, but he did not. Um, he didn't get to that one. He didn't get to her, but thankfully she got away. I'm sure traumatized for the rest of her life because that's just awful. But yeah, that's your sharp, Voice of Astrology. You do that. Very good. So here we got Shane. Here's Canadian Shane. Is that okay with the nickname Shane? I put that on the thumbnail because I wanted to designate you being Canadian, but I didn't know we don't ever refer to you that way. But is that opposing to you, or would you rather be known otherwise? You just tell me. But yeah, so that'll be fun with Shane next week, the monster of the Miramichi. We did that on the podcast, and it's a wild one. How they chased him down, and he kept getting away, and it's a wild story. And you don't think of serial killers up in Canada like we do here, because here we seem to like grow them out of the ground. But up there are some wicked ones that we've talked about on the Murder Metal Mayhem podcast. But the very first case we had where we brought Shane on was when um, we talked about this story about a guy on a bus named Vince Lee, but not was it Vince Lee? Maybe not. Maybe I'm remembering the name wrong. You let me know, Shane. Um, and so he gets on this bus and he's got like some obvious mental problems, and he gets this knife and he just goes nuts on this bus and starts like beheading people and eating them. And the bus is surrounded by police, and they're afraid to go in there. But yet this guy's like gnawing on people's body parts. It's disgusting, but it's a true story, and it happened right near the. Juan's asking about poutine. That'd be all right. I could make up some poutine over here. Of course, Shane could just go down on the corner and grab some like fast food over there, but I can make it. I got the mix here. I bought it on Amazon from a place in Montreal, so I guess it's as poutine gets in the Midwest. But I keep saying we got to do a cook off between poutine versus biscuits and gravy and see which one wins, because biscuits and gravy is a big one here in the Midwest and the South in the U.S. But up in Canada, boy, they're loving that poutine. So Vince Lee. Okay, thanks, Shane. I was right. Okay, so yeah, Vince Lee was the guy on the bus, but that's a crazy one. I'm sure we'll get to it because that's too good of a story to not repeat. And I say good, I don't mean good to the victims is horrible, but good as an interesting something to talk about mental health and what are we doing out there to prevent that kind of thing from happening. And did this guy slip through the cracks? That sort of thing. Okay. But but we might have to do that. So my mom's asking, what is poutine? So Shane educated me on this. It's French fries with cheese curds on them, and cheese curds are huge out here, Wisconsin, in the Midwest, all over the Midwest, but big time up in Wisconsin. And then a brown gravy, but it's a special brown gravy. It's not much different than like any other brown gravy I've had, but it was very good. The mix that I bought from Montreal. But that's all it is French fries, cheese curds, and gravy. And it's like a comfort food, just like biscuits and gravy kind of a thing. But when I first heard the word, it sounded perverted. I was like, what are you talking about? And then I realized it was not. And then I was like, you got to tell me what this poutine is. But if you Google it or you YouTube it, I'm sure there's all sorts of people that can walk you through how to make it. It's not much. It's just you got to get the right mix. And I just went on Amazon and bought it right off of this place in Montreal. Got good reviews. People said it was very legit and it was good. But we do that a lot on the podcast. We'll take like whatever the topic is and we'll eat something that relates, like the Joe Matheny. That's another one that'll probably be done on here. The cannibal. who fed his victims to his customers at his roadside barbecue stand. How messed up is that? But we ate. I had a buddy that catered barbecue to like weddings and stuff. I had invited him over, and he catered us eating barbecue while we talked about Joe Matheny. So that was a messed up one. And of course, it's gross, but that's how the podcast is. It's over the top. It's over the top. And we did Vegemite when we've done Australian cases. We've done, different foods of different areas, and we like to have some fun with it. So it's definitely crazy, crazy times here, but enjoying it. And did anybody want to have any discussion about Glatman? I mean, can you see now after hearing his story um, that it's a case that really had a lot of long lasting ramifications? Gacy's, rope trick comes from Glatman. That's what Glatman called it. That's what. I just bought the book. Catherine Ramsland just came out with a new book about Dean Coral and his henchman. Trying to think of the name off the top of my head. I'm not thinking of it, but it's called The Serial Killer's Apprentice. But the guy that helped him, it's about him. And it's a very fascinating case, but he's the one that actually came up with another variation of that rope trick. And that's the one that Gacy cites, but Dean Coral and them got it from Glatman. It all comes from Glatman. It's pretty wild. Yeah, Vegemite sandwich, disgusting. I talked to an Australian heavy metal guy, a friend of mine, Sean Ferrugia, from In Malice's Wake, and he said if you eat Vegemite, he goes, put a lot of butter on it, slather it in butter, and it's very salty. It was not my thing. Actually, I was the only one in the studio that night that ate it and didn't spit it out. The others all spit it out. My wife and the other two guys all spit it out. But I was definitely all about trying it, and with the butter on it, it was tolerable, but it's still rough. But in Australia, boy, they eat it like they're eating peanut butter out of a jar. It's messed up. It's messed up. 5 feet, 5 feet rope, 5 feet of rope. I'm not sure that might be a thing. It rings a bell. It rings a bell. I always try to, reaffirm my knowledge of these guys before we do these. But some of the details, it's really tough to remember it all. But so yeah, it's and you can get Vegemite on Amazon too. That's where I got it from. So Isles of Shoals is saying poutine is a lot like turkey gravy. I would kind of agree with that. It's not a dark brown gravy. It's more of like a light brown. It's a good comparison. Very good. All right. Well, I think the discussion of Glatman, that's what I had to talk about. And if nobody has anything they want to bring up about Glatman or anything about any other serial killers, I mean, we're here. Um, I don't want to keep you if we're done, but I don't want to chase you out if we're not. So, but yeah, Alan Legier next week, The Monster of the Miramichi, that's going to be good. Don't forget to like it. Now, you've already heard it, so I would assume I'm not being, you know, assuming to say that you liked it. You've watched it. If you liked it, hit that like button, okay? Smash it, whatever you got to do. And subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And good question. I just caught this Voice of Astrology. Whatever happened to all the photos he took? Well, apparently, when he was doing his breakdown when he was being interrogated, the cops, like they typically do, tricked him, and he brought up something about, you must have found my toolbox. And they were like thinking, what is he talking about? But they let him on, like, yeah, we found your toolbox. What about it? And he's like, well, that's where I kept all the pictures. So that's where his pictures were. So I would assume they all became evidence against him and are probably in some police evidence room somewhere. I would assume, but I don't know. But I would assume they're in some sort of LA, I think it was in Los Angeles County. It might have been San Diego County. I think I saw something about San Diego County, but nonetheless, in some county evidence room, I would assume. But that is a very good question. I always wonder that too. Just like with the eyeball killer, that'd be another good one. In Texas, the Texas eyeball killer, he cut the eyeballs out of the victims with an X-Acto knife, and he did it so uh, skillfully, like a surgeon, that there was no red stuff. There was none of that there. And so when they found the victims, they didn't even realize it until they pulled the eyelid up to see what color the eyes were and freaked out that they were gone. But Charles Albright, when he got caught, they asked him where were the eyes, and he never told them. So I actually wrote a short story about that. Um, I took the Telltale Heart and updated it with a different angle, with a female in the bed instead of a male, and a different setup of why that person was trying to get them, and then incorporated it with the Texas eyeball killer. And I'll leave it there. It's in Creation of Chaos 3, I think. It's either 3 or 4, but if you go on the website, it lists all the stories in there. But the one is that you want is The Eyes Have It. And that's the story about my updated version of the Telltale Heart. I also updated a story of H.P. Lovecraft, The Thing on the Doorstep, which has always been one of my favorites of his. I redid that with some different angles, and I just playing around with some styles, and also updated a version of Frankenstein, which I did as a standalone or as a story in my one of my collections. So I like to do some of that, but most of the stories in my books are all from me. They're all from me. It's just that I like to sometimes take a classic and twist it around and put my own slant on it. But very good. Um, Albright, he had a bunch of what happened with Albright. He was obsessed with eyes, and he was in college. His roommate um, lost a girlfriend that he had had for like all through college. They broke up. The guy was like completely devastated. So so Albright goes and takes a picture of the guy's girlfriend and makes a bunch of copies of it, and then cuts the eyes out and puts the eyes all over this dude's room, like on the walls and the ceilings and stuff. Could you imagine that? So that's Albright. I wouldn't doubt that he had sketches of him too, because he was obsessed with eyes. He learned taxidermy with his mother when he was really little, and it always stayed with him. But he was obsessed with the eyes, and he would go to the taxidermy shop to look at the eyes and feel them in his hands. He liked the way they felt in his hands. So yeah, it's disturbing to say the least, but I thought, why not incorporate him into a character? And so, yeah, you got a little Albright in that one, but very good. Yeah, Heidnik, that's a classic. I mean, some say he was more of the inspiration of Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs than who do they always say it is? Oh, man, it's escaping me for a second. Geen, yeah. I mean, Heidnik was chaining him up in the basement and doing all sorts of weird stuff to him. And yeah, Heidnik would be a really good one for this show. So thanks for the suggestion. That's a great one. That's a great one. We did him early in Murder Metal Mayhem, so we've done a podcast on him. You can always search for any of these episodes on YouTube, just Murder Metal Mayhem, and then whoever you're looking for, whatever person. And if we've done an episode on it, it'll pull it up and you can listen to it. Like I said, it's the language is rough. It's not for everybody, but if that stuff doesn't bother you, then go for it. But very good. Any other? Oh, I see your voice of astrology. We had to bring in just a touch of Idaho 4, right? Moscow has all the pictures. So yeah, and ironically enough, voice of astrology, they burned up in a fire. I mean, our bad. Sorry about that. The most ridiculous thing of all time, and anybody could take that nonsense seriously. Is just I don't even know what to say about it. So yeah, that's a good one. Moscow has them. All right, very good. Well, with that, I'll see you next week at the same time, same channel, same everything. We're gonna go to Canada though, a little chilly up there, but LLER. It's definitely going to be a good one, and we'll have Shane on with us. I look forward to it, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for the support, Horns High Club, Mayhem Squad. If you want to become a member, you can do that on the channel. It's $1.99 for the Mayhem Squad, and $1.99 for the Horns High Club, and $2.99 for the Mayhem Squad. If you want to do a super chat or any kind of direct donation to the channel, feel free to do that. But of course, not expected, but always appreciated. As Evil CJ says, I like that line. But you could do that if you choose to. That's certainly up to you. But thanks again, guys, and I'll be live on Saturday because I got an MRI on Sunday, which is kind of weird, but it's an MRI I got to do on Sunday for some surgery I got to do. But Saturday, 4 p.m. Central, I'll be on here. Thursday, I'll be on here with AR and Lee. So I've got those two lives still yet this week, Thursday and Saturday. So I'll be posting the thumbnails so you know when it's going down. But I sure appreciate all your support, and you guys are awesome. I'll see you next time.